All right, Arizona Cardinal fans, it's time for Red Rain Podcast episode 189. Please welcome in your host, Walter Mitchell.
Thank you, Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter, sporting his Philadelphia Phillies hat. I grew up a Johnny Callison fan for some of you older guys. But anyway, and Dick Allen, oh man, Jim Bunning. But anyway, delighted to be with Kyle and Sam the man, the Saguaro football legend is on our side. And we're going to need some Saguaro magic today to kind of get ourselves over what was once again a blueprint for fourth quarter meltdown after the Cardinals played three just fantastic quarters against the Packers. So, and I've been writing a lot about this lately, about inherently flawed. Monti and JG's plan has been from the beginning, and I want to focus our attention on that after we talk about the game first, because we deserve to do the game justice. And let's start with Sam and his take on what he saw in the game.
Well, it was deja vu all over again, wasn't it? Team fought hard, played competitively, but ultimately they struggled to close out the game. Defense failed when it mattered most. And we've suffered our fifth consecutive loss. I thought the team played very hard as for three quarters.
Yep.
And, you've got a trench problem. And we've seen it in years past. We started improving last year. And even with all the talent we brought in on the defensive line, it's not improved. That's disappointing.
Yeah, good recap. By the way, congrats to your Broncos, who probably were giving you you were going to have to hit the Pepto-Bismol all game. And suddenly at the end, that was the reverse. You got it on both ends.
That's
Fourth
right.
quarter, that was magical for your Broncos, and fourth quarter that just didn't get it done for the Cardinals. So,
and who knows? It might be coaching.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Kyle Little Rock, what's your take?
Yeah, well, Sam outlined the big part, which is the Cardinals once again had a fourth quarter lead and once again blew it in the end. Only team in the NFL where all 7 games have been one score this year, which is, normally you'd chalk that up to say, hey, you're going to win some of them and lose some of them. But in the modern NFL, a lot of it is the team that makes the least amount of mistakes, right? The team that doesn't blink. I know we're going to talk a bit about Patriot philosophy here today, but that was the old adage, is as long as we don't make a mistake down the stretch, the other team will. And That's been the case in a lot of these Cardinals losses. It's how Kansas City ends up winning 17 one-score games in a row, which is an all-time NFL record, is just the team that doesn't make mistakes. I think you guys might appreciate this. We were watching the game at home. It was on, and I literally joked when it was 23-20 Cardinals. I'm like, man, they're probably going to find a way to blow this one too. I mean, it's just every time with Gannon and Rallis, it's a battle between them and Kyle Shanahan of who blows more fourth quarter leads and whose game plan just falls apart down the stretch. It's just remarkable how they always find themselves in these situations. And I do want to give the Packers credit too. I know it's going to be a bag on the Cardinals day too, but I guess actually first, give the Cardinals credit for, even with 3-point lead, trying to go for it on fourth down late in the game. I think that was the right call, even if it didn't work out. Far too often teams get timid in those situations and either punt or kick field goals, things like that. So it was the right strategy, even though it didn't work out. And then credit to LaFleur and the Packers, because I think at this point, Matt LaFleur's most famous moment as a coach was when he kicked the field goal in the 8-point game in the NFC Championship game against the Bucks, and they never got to touch the ball again. Instead of going for it, I think it was a 4th and goal at the 6-yard line or something like that.
Right.
And far too often he does kick the field goal or do the punt or have the timid coaching situation. So the fact they could have tied the game, they brought the offense back on the field. They went for it on that 4th down and were rewarded for going for it on that 4th down. I think they deserve a lot of credit for doing that too, because I think in the past we've seen LaFleur, do the easy thing, even if it's the wrong thing or the timid thing in those situations. So credit to the Packers, credit to the Cardinals, and it's the same thing we've been seeing during the 5-game losing streak. Is they have a 4th quarter lead. Defense starts playing soft coverage. Packers or some other team moves the ball down the field, and the Cardinals end up losing.
Yeah, and for me, the biggest takeaway of this game was the continued strong play from Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. There's no way, I think, that Kyler Murray faces up against the Colts and Packers pressure and does anything remotely similar to what Jacoby did, hanging in there and throwing dimes. And let's put up that Jacoby graphic that I tweeted out. So, Kyle, let's read that, and let's take note. And I mean, I'll say in the beginning, Arizona media pundits are calling Jacoby Brissett's performance last 2 weeks solid. I think under the circumstances, it's borderline spectacular, given the opponents they were playing, 2 top 10 defenses, and that we hadn't seen the likes of this kind of offensive passing game in years. I mean, really. I mean, 2 back-to-backers, of really good, strong passing. So go ahead, Kyle. Let's hear this.
From Walter Mitchell on Twitter at WBJMitch. Jacoby Brissett in 2 games versus top 10 defenses, Indianapolis and Green Bay, created 730 yards of offense to the opponent's 617. By the way, both top 10 offenses, too. He outpassed Daniel Jones 312 to 205 and Jordan Love 236 to 168. Average of 25 points per game, passing for 4 touchdowns and 1 interception, delivered 11 scoring drives, and has led team to at least 1 score in all 8 quarters. His 82.4 PFF grade is currently the highest grade on the entire Cardinals team for players who have played more than 150 snaps. 3 weeks ago, fans were convinced that Drew Petzing had poor passing schemes. The last 2 weeks, Jacoby Brissett has proven otherwise. And today, he, Trey McBride, Zay Jones, and Michael Wilson earned the 4 highest PFF grades on the offense.
When have we ever seen that? Where 4 of our skill guys are the top 4 grades. Especially recently, because our offensive line has been good until, Clayton Adams was poached away. And the offensive line still does some good things in pass pro. Well, yesterday we got exposed, and I think poorly. It was a poor plan by Petzing to account for Micah Parsons, and particularly when they shifted him over to try to exploit Jonah Williams. We'll talk more about that, but the gist is that can we go to the graphic of the 4th quarter woes for the Cardinals? It's a short tweet. that, in the last 2 weeks with leads going into the fourth quarter, it was an identical 14-3 deficit that they encountered in the fourth quarters that turned leads into close losses. 14-3 fourth quarter against the Colts, 14-3 fourth quarter against the Packers. And yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Kyle.
Common denominator in the last 2 weeks with the Cardinals ahead heading into the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter points, Colts 14, Arizona 3. Fourth quarter points, Green Bay 14, Arizona 3. Final score of the Colts game 31-27. Final score of the Packers game 27-23. Cardinals' fourth quarter deficit is now minus 45, good for 32nd out of 32 in the NFL.
Sam knows this, Kyle knows this, and I say it frequently. Closing games in athletics is wicked hard. And only the really best prepared teams can consistently do it. The Cardinals have not been able to do it at all over the last 5 weeks. And if you count the last 7 games from last year that were meaningful, it's now, and these first 7 games were so meaningful to the Cardinals' success this year because the schedule gets even more difficult as the season goes on. So in those, 14 games, the Cardinals have only won 4 of them. So 4-10. Now, and I want to, so that in meaningful games, and some of them have been close, every one of them this year. The Cardinals seem to be having a real difficult time finishing games. And in my opinion, from the get-go, when Austin Fort and Gannon arrived, the Cardinals have been, not been coached to finish or coached well enough to finish. And I have a bunch of reasons why I don't want to get into that. But finishing in the NFL, as we know, is, takes, look what the Packers and Colts did to us down the stretch the last 2 weeks. That's what it takes, is showing up in the brightest moments and getting things done and in timely fashion and being able to play that clock well and this and that. So, why can't the Cardinals finish? Well, it's the same thing every week, is that, the defense just goes into a shell and, and we've seen no variation. I mean, when the Cardinals were 2-0 post that game, and it was embarrassing the way that the Panthers came back and nearly won that game. And was, talk about a guy finishing, was Calais Campbell, who finished that game with a timely sack, which we haven't seen anything the likes of from anyone since. I can't recall a big fourth quarter sack from this revamped pass rush that really isn't getting home. I mean, what did we have? 1 sack yesterday, and a lot of free time in the back end for Jordan Love, which is really tough if you want to try to beat the Packers for 4 quarters. But, but Gannon vowed, oh, we're going to fix this thing now. I mean, this is just too much. I get it. Everyone sees it. We can't be this passive or whatever it is. We're going to fix it. And yet this is why I say that the plan here is irreparably unfixable, because obviously he has no idea of how to fix it. It's not looking anything different from week to week. The schemes aren't different. They're just kind of, sticking with, we'll do what we do and hope to get lucky. and that's not working. So, it's not going to work. But I think the team, the way it's been conditioned, the way it's been coached, has not been coached or conditioned to finish. And so we're gonna focus in on that. And I think part of that is the plan from the beginning. But before we do that, Sam, what do you see, in these fourth quarters that sticks out to you?
Well, I see other teams adjusting to what the non-adjusted schemes of the Cardinals coaches, both offense and defense. I mean, LaFleur got very aggressive in the fourth quarter. The Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft touchdown, that was a fourth down play, and they made it work. They converted all their drives, and we see it every week. I mean, it's Josh Jacobs became more effective. We saw that with Jonathan Taylor the previous week. And, our defensive line is not doing the job. We've got young guys who are replacements for starters in the backfield, and they're overmatched.
Right.
I mean, they're just overmatched. They're too young and they're inexperienced. And when another team dials up a big play, you don't have the pass rush putting enough pressure on the quarterback. You've got young kids in the defensive backfield getting vulnerable. You've just got a vulnerability in the fourth quarter, and I don't see any coaching adjustments, and that's both offense and defense.
Right. If we go back to day one of I asked the question myself, is Monti Ossenfort a finisher? Is Jonathan Gannon a finisher? All right. You got to have guys who can finish and know how to do it, right? This is the thing about head coaches in the NFL, and one of the main reasons why I want Clayton Adams to be our next head coach, is you have to bring something special with you that comes in that gives you a strategic advantage. All right, I'm not sure. I haven't discovered anything yet from Gannon that special quality. Plus, he's shunned all sort of, he doesn't call plays. He doesn't. We found out last week he basically leaves it up to his inexperienced coordinators. So I don't know what he's really doing over there in his little cone of silence on the sideline. And he's created a sinecure for himself in Arizona. He's got the easiest job on game day of anybody. He just can stand there and think about it. And maybe he decides, he has the final vote on whether to go for it, like in 4th and 1 or stuff like that, or when to punt or things like that. But I think Jeff Rodgers is also involved in that. But anyway, you need somebody special who's going to, stop the bleeding when you need it most and turn momentum around. But here's the wacky thing about Jonathan Gannon, is he doesn't believe in momentum. He said that. And I wrote a tweet yesterday, like he's putting on a clinic as to how to hand momentum over to the other team in these key situations, particularly down the stretch. I mean, I think momentum is a really meaningful thing. I mean, if you look at Gannon's fourth quarter in the Super Bowl, he couldn't stop the Chiefs' momentum. Now, he's not the first coach not to be able to do that, but that was for a whole half. I mean, I couldn't stop him anytime. And if you can't do it anytime during a half, what does that say about your ability to adjust or make plans or have a different escape route? And we've seen that in other games here. The fourth quarter meltdowns, starting with year one when they had a 20-0 lead on the Giants at home. In the second half, Daniel Jones has like a career half where he does nothing wrong. I mean, does everything right, starting with a successful long bomb on the first play of the second half, and then it just snowballed. And so we're getting into these fourth quarter situations where they continue to snowball and nobody seems to have an answer, and the scheme doesn't look anything different. We're not looking like we're seeing a different, adjustment each week. So, but if you go back to, symbolically, go back to the Super Bowl. Not only do we see that Gannon couldn't adjust in the second half, was it, and I know fans are going to push back on this, but he quit on the Eagles during the Super Bowl weeks, having said to the Eagle Nation, "I'm coming back. They're paying me. Like, they love me." And I'm sorry, but like when Bill Parcells said, if someone shows you who he is, believe him. And people say, well, everyone has a right to wanting to improve their jobs. Yeah, but not there. Not when so much is at stake. I watched, Jason Kelsey's retirement speech. And for 10 minutes, he cried at the microphone about losing that game and not going out as a winner in that game, in that Super Bowl. And I thought the whole time watching that, like, I wonder if JG's watching this. I wonder if he's watching this. And by the way, talk about escapes. JG not only was able to, jump right into the Cardinals interview room, it enabled him not to have to answer questions to the Philadelphia media about what went on in that second half and why there weren't adjustments and why they were just getting embarrassed with, by the way, the supposed number one ranked defense in the NFL. So, what's going on there? But he didn't have to answer to it. He ended up sort of answering some of it to the Arizona media, to which he lied repeatedly. First, he lied about knowing anything about the Cardinals, interview, and the phone call and everything. That was a blatant lie. Then he lied about the Philadelphia media saying to him that after the team was, he said 8-0, which they never were. That was a lie. And that his defense was number one in the league in sacks at that time, which was also a lie. It wasn't true. And that at 8-0, they wanted me fired, which wasn't true. There's nothing true about that at all. Right then and there, you're just kind of wondering, who is this guy and what is Monti Ossenfort seeing him? So then I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to try to keep an open mind. And then day one, he's like Mr. Bro with Kyler. Anyone who was in that locker room in 2022 knows how toxic and dysfunctional Kyler Murray was. His nickname was the Monster. Okay. And it goes back to him quitting on the team in LA and then quitting on the team in a way of scrubbing his socials. What people, during a Super Bowl weeks, we go back to Super Bowl weeks, Kyler wanted to make it all about him and come and get me, guys. I'm if the Cardinals aren't going to pay me, I want to be traded, or whatever he wanted in secrecy or whatever. And it didn't work out the way he had planned. And I'm convinced of that because I had I had a source close to the situation, very, very reliable, who was saying Kyler was dreaming of going to a team with a great receiving group and an elite defense. And at that time, Hopkins was facing a 6-game suspension. The whole thing was a total mess. But the way Kyler handled it was so immature. And he brought a lot of that bad karma back on himself. And I said at the time, and Sam will reiterate this because he remembers, that you don't want to re-sign, that signing caving in and giving Kyler his bag that summer by Bidwell would be the biggest mistake of Bidwell's career. And he's made so many, mystifying mistakes. Because here's the reason why. If you're a true football guy, and this is what gets me about Gannon and Ossenfort, if you're a true football guy, you know how important the locker room is. And if you want to red carpet a guy who's divided that locker room and reward him with a contract he doesn't deserve, all because you're paying him for potential that he'll be good for you down the line. What does it say about their understanding of locker rooms? And now people will say, oh, well, the players all seemed cool about it. Of course they're going to be cool about it. It's a new head coach and GM. And they want job security. But they were all put in the uncomfortable position of having to accept this, this locker room divider as, the first guy Gannon's embracing upon his entrance into the building. And I mean, it disgusted me. And, here's the other thing you could have done. You could have just said, hey, I'm new here. We're going to evaluate every position. We're going to look at it from every angle. And right now, every job's open. That's the diplomatic thing to do. And the best thing you can do for all the players is to say, we're going to give you all equal opportunities. And nobody would really, I don't think, object to that, right? But he doesn't. He comes in with these preconceived notions that Kyler's the man. DJ Humphries is the, poster child of integrity in the organization. That one came out of left field to me. I mean, I love DJ Humphries, and he's a really great guy. But DJ Humphries, he just wasn't the bell cow in the room. James Conner was. Buda Baker was. And then they had this strange thing with Buda. They didn't want to work things out with Buda. I mean, it just all felt wrong from the start. But here's the thing, and then I'm going to jump over to you guys. Here's where the plan was really screwed up from the start. Is the then willfully accepting the thought of, oh, we're going to tear this all down, and for a year, we're going to tank. We don't mind tanking, put it that way. Because this way, we'll get a huge draft favor going because we got the Texans trade and this and that. And so it's going to be a great year to tank and get whatever we want out of the draft. And I said at the time, this is the worst thing you could do in a plan. Not only will it anger and, infuriate the football gods, because you can't look at players in a locker room after they played a football game and lost and feel like that's a good, okay, acceptable thing. Because it's not. There's no integrity in it. None. But here's the thing, is from the get-go, these Cardinals players have been taught it's okay to lose. It's okay. Gannon and all those press conferences the first year looked, cool as a cucumber. Hey, it's cool, man. It's cool. We're, and celebrated what little effort he got in the game and whatever. We're good. We're good. We're good. You weren't good. You weren't teaching players how to finish then. And if you don't start off teaching players how to finish, you're never going to finish. And this is the just reward. This is the just reward for having, Matt Prater missed 2 field goals at the end of the game so you could tank to get the 4th pick. And don't bullshit me with, he just missed them on his own. That whole thing was choreographed. I'll tell you why it was. No player came to Prater to pat him on the back and say, it's okay, it's okay. They all ran off the field. It's just as if they all knew. And so this is what the karma is for that. When you tank and you say, we don't care about winning the game. And I remember Kyle Ortegard writing that the Seattle loss at the end of that game where they finally could have beaten the Seahawks and Pete Carroll on his way out the door, was the perfect loss. The perfect loss. And that's the whole thing. Is look at these games now. Aren't they the perfect loss? Only now you're trying to win them, but all along you haven't been teaching your players to finish. And nothing that Gannon has done in this organization has prepared his players to finish, starting from the get-go. Your reaction to that? Kyle, we'll start with you.
Well, there's going back to when they first hired Jonathan Gannon and them getting in trouble for tampering and all the stuff like that. Like someone who wanted to see the writing on the wall could see the writing on the wall. Because like, Walter, how many times did we do podcasts over the last 2 years and we just talked about it being an unserious situation, right? Not necessarily having the sample size to see that Gannon wasn't going to be a good coach, but just that it seemed like he was running an unserious operation, and the weird comments and, the lack of improvement, things like that. It just, the whole way seemed like an unserious operation. And when they started to win last year and the offense started to make strides, specifically with Drew Petzing, you could look at it and say, okay, at least this side of the ball is making improvements. And at least you can look at the defense and say, A, they're young, B, they're injured, and C, they probably need another influx of talent, whether that's in free agency or the draft. At least you could look at that and say, because it was a long rebuild, you have plausible deniability on that defensive side of the ball. And now you're just kind of at a point where you don't really have that anymore. I mean, in a world where the Dolphins might be firing a coach sometime before we finish this podcast, I think back to Brian Flores and how Mike McDaniel got that job in the first place, where Brian Flores was asked to tank. They sort of tanked in the sense of the organization traded Minkah Fitzpatrick 2 games into the season and did not give them the requisite talent in order to compete. But those guys on the field, whether it was Ryan Fitzpatrick or whoever else, ended up winning 5 games. And they didn't end up getting Joe Burrow, but they got Tua Tagovailoa, kind of similar to the Cardinals. Didn't end up getting a top pick in the draft, but they still got Marvin Harrison Jr. out of that quote-unquote tanking season. So you kind of look at the whole situation, and Brian Flores getting fired after his 3rd year. They went 9-7, which many people would say if the Cardinals had gone 9-7 this year and missed the playoffs, it would have been a successful season. And Brian Flores still got fired, which tells me if you go 3 seasons in the NFL without making the playoffs, nobody is entitled to a 4th year, and nobody is entitled to keep their job in this hyper competitive NFL landscape. So now you just kind of have the requisite sample size to say it's just not going to work out. And you've been talking about this since almost day one. I mean, at least since game 1, basically, about all this stuff with Jonathan Gannon. I think now we just have the sample size to say all of the things that you were talking about before probably were what you were seeing.
Yeah. By the way, he was 10-6 in year 3, and the playoffs hadn't expanded yet or whatever. He certainly deserved to be a playoff team. And I watched him not only beat the Cardinals with a 4th quarter adjustment that took Kyler Murray out of the game and gave Tua his first win as a starter. He went through the NFC West that year with brilliant game plans and won 3 out of 4 games. He won the last 3 games he played in the NFC West, and the NFC West was good that year. It was just, he took out the Rams and Jared Goff in an amazingly great game plan, etc. And boy, I'd love to have him as a head coach here, but it's never going to happen. Even though he's got the ties to Monti, it's never going to happen because of our owner. Sam. Oh, and by the way, one thing, Kyler and I have an ace in the hole. is we take the show in the midst of the fury of the Murray debacle of the holdout, called Kyler ... What if? And we've never aired that. We were worried.
I gotta be honest, I kind of forgot what we talked about in that episode now, but it'd be fun to go back and listen to that.
Well, all the points I'm making now are on that video. I mean, you have to. Here's the thing: is Bidwell has no ability. I mean, has no sense, and the same thing with Monti and Gannon and Kyler. Kyler professes to see things before they happen. Baby. Quite the reverse. I mean, they have no sense of there being consequences for acts of stupidity or ignorance or malfeasance or violation of league rules or tanking games. There's, they feel like they can just slide by. But there's always, consequences to things like that. And, they come back and bite you in the ass like they're doing now. Isn't it the irony that when they had a field goal to knock off the Seahawks, now everybody's kicking a field goal to beat them? I mean, it's the laugh of the football gods. It's like, oh, now you want to try to win? Well, look at this. Sam, take it away.
Well, I think when you look at this coaching staff that has never had a winning season, and I don't think they're going to have a winning season this year, I think that's pretty obvious. You have to look at the positives. So taking a look at the positives, let's look at who's improved, whose play has improved, yep. which squad within the squad is improved. And then you take a look at that and you see that with maybe the exception of Trey McBride, yep. maybe with the exception of Paris,
right?
Maybe with the exception of, I don't know, the two young guys who are learning every week in the backfield, you have a team that's regressed. The offensive line in its entirety, with the exception, as I said, Paris and probably Fro, has completely regressed.
Yeah.
You look at Monti's effort there. What are you doing bringing Williams in? He's horrible.
Right.
Horrible.
Although Williams was better with Clayton Adams.
Oh, the whole, absolutely. Right. But he's another example of regression. You just start with your quarterback. Your quarterback has regressed.
Right.
Your best player on defense, Budda Baker, has regressed. Yep. That's coaching.
Yep.
That's an arrogant, inexperienced coaching staff who, like you said, has no awareness, coaches in a bubble, is scheme-oriented, whether it works or not. There's no adjustments on the fly. There's no adjustments based on what the other team is running successfully. So, without getting into what Bidwell's going to do about it, if anything, we're going to be, what are we right now? If the season was over today, we would be picking, I think, 5th. 9th. Okay. Yeah. 9th.
Yeah. 9th.
Don't give us a couple more games. We'll improve in that area.
Of course, we're always the last of teams tied because of the strength of our schedule. That always pisses me off. It's like they ought to do like the NBA and have
do all the coin flips,
a ball, or the coin flips or something, a little lottery for tied teams, because that's bogus. But anyway, just go ahead.
But at the end of the season, it's going to come down to probably, with every metric involved in keeping a coaching staff and continuation of what you're building, the only criteria that someone could look at as a poor reason to keep this staff and front office is that the team is injured. If we would have been healthy, if James Conner would have been healthy, would we have picked up that 4th and 1 yesterday? I don't know. But with all the injuries, I think that's the only criteria that this staff and front office can lean on and say to the owner, look, we were decimated by injuries.
Right.
We need another year. We're going to if you look at the draft requirements or the players and the positions next season based upon what we've seen so far, every single position we've drafted previously, we still need it. We still need talent there in almost every position.
Right. And that tells you about the coach's ability to develop the talent.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Rams draft picks the last 3 years.
Oh.
And what those kids are doing.
Textbook perfect.
Puka Nacua, a 5th-round draft pick. Are you kidding me?
Look at Seattle.
And you look at the Cardinals, who's had plenty more, and you only have a couple home runs there, or near home runs for the Cardinals. Paris Johnson, and could have been Garrett Williams, but came in injured, and he's, got the injury again. He missed games last year too. You can't jump to Garrett Williams and really say that convincingly because he's not on the field. It can't help the club if you're in the tub. It's to be determined whether any of these guys are really good. And but what you brought up is a really key thing because it goes back to plan. And so Gannon comes in. I don't know if he got a classic Bidwell quid pro quo. Well, I'll let you just be the head coach and with no other responsibilities. We'll let you hire your staff, but you have to take on Kyler Murray. Maybe it was something like that. And so maybe this is imposed on Monti and on Gannon. And maybe that's why Dan Quinn left the building after 2 interviews, is being told that and not acquiesce. I think Dan Quinn was also told, I heard a rumor, that for him to retain Vance Joseph as DC, which is laughable. I mean, if you're Dan Quinn, you're going to keep Vance Joseph as DC. So anyway, and they whiffed on Quinn, which is too bad because, guy has coached a team to a Super Bowl. And he was a really, really dynamic DC in Dallas. But anyway, it goes back to this. So Gannon has the autonomy to hire the staff. So if he wanted the sinecure of, hey, I can just stand there on the sidelines, he had the choice of being able to hire an experienced OC and put the offense in the hands of a really competent guy there and an experienced DC. And he, could have brought Rouse, given him a promotion within the organization to come with him and not have him be the inexperienced DC from day one. But you'd have veteran mentors too, which Gannon has shunned since he got here in bizarre fashion. So you hire the youngest coaching staff probably ever in the NFL. I mean, 2 coordinators with not a 0 snap of NFL experience calling plays. I mean, what do you think you're going to get in the NFC West when you're going up against veteran staffs led by the likes of Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and I think a real rising star in Mike McDonald? I mean, how is that a plan, even a feasible plan at coming after the NFC West? I don't see how it's possible. Then, this year, after 2 years of struggling and trying to get over the hump, which down the stretch they were awful, and only one played well when the games didn't matter the last couple of weeks, which was so agonizing. When they were so poor the first 4 or 5 games of the after the bye week when they were defending first place. But here's what he does. Here's what they do. They let Clayton Adams, unbelievably, they let Clayton Adams out of the building. There have been reports recently that the Cardinals were entertaining promoting Clayton to OC. And I don't know what that would have meant with Petzing, maybe to assistant head coach or something. Still, they're going to work together. But they decided not to. And particularly when they had Justin Fry on the line, Paris Johnson's old, O-line coach in Ohio State. But they're letting the best coach by far in the building go to Dallas scot-free, and they're bringing in a college coach with 0 years NFL experience. Then they fire Derek LeBlanc, who I thought did a miraculous job with practice squad players holding up that line after all the, overpaid free agents were knocked out for the season. They fired Derek LeBlanc, and they bring in another guy from college, Winston Delattabadere, Coach Debo, who's a bright young coach, but again, 0 experience. So now, Kyle, we have a graphic I had sent to you this morning. We're going to go through the PFF grades and Sam rightfully said from the start when I asked him about the game, he was talking about what's going on up front. So let's chronicle this. Let's see how these hires of college coaches, obviously with some talents, they succeeded on the college level, but how does that translate to the NFL? And having no experience. Plus, think of it this way about Coach Debo. So he comes in from college, and the Cardinals have just, invested in 2 first-round defensive interior players, in Darius Robinson and Walter Nolan. And now they've also doubled down, bringing in Calais Campbell. You have veteran guys there. And here comes in this, inexperienced college coach. What kind of gravitas will that guy have in the room? It's like having a substitute teacher. And I'm sorry, these guys are, I think you put them as assistants if they want to go in the NFL so they can get experience. But coming in and being put in charge of those groups when you're so heavily invested now in what you need. So Facu is a great poster on and he asked the question. Can you read that? The question he asked me?
Yeah, the original question from Facu Moresi is, Walter, do you support Fry's hiring? Stills is a good player, and Darius Robinson was in the right direction. And then you started off by saying up here, Facu, I was irate about the Cardinals not promoting Clayton Adams and giving him a hefty raise. It also was BS. Monti let go of the D-line coach, Derek LeBlanc, who got a lot out of backups after UFAs went on IR. But hiring another college coach with no NFL experience, Winston Delattabadere, while having no veteran senior advisor, is why Calais Campbell's PFF grade 76.6, Dalvin Tomlinson's 56.8, Mustafer's is 50.3, Bilal Nichols 46.9, Stills 44.1, Goodlow 43.2, Robinson 35.9. Think of it this way. Over the past 2 drafts, the Cardinals have selected 2 first-round defensive interior players, and yet this year they put Darius Robinson and Walter Nolan in the hands of a D-line coach who has no NFL experience. As for Justin Fry, you posted the PFF grades this year versus last year.
Correct.
Paris Johnson, 76.3 this year compared to 80.8 last year. Hajalte Froholt, 65.3 versus 76.1 last year. Jonah Williams, 60.8 compared to 70.7 last year. Evan Brown, 58.4 compared to 65.9 in 2024. And then Isaiah Adams, 44.0 with a 58.4 last year. Will Hernandez clocks in 36.3 compared to 69.3 under Clayton Adams. The eye test from what the O-line looked like last year to this season is night and day.
Sam, jump in here on that. I know this means a lot to you.
Well, that's how I started off the show, summarizing the play and the game and where this team is at. Your trenches are lousy. You know, you the only thing you did last year to with your offensive line is degrade the coach. Should Clayton Adams be the offensive coordinator? Was he the offensive coordinator who built this run game?
Yeah.
It sure doesn't look like it's Drew Petzing.
Right.
Same with the offensive line. It's like I said previously. If you look at a staff that hasn't had a winning season, are things improving? Are individual players improving?
Right.
We're seeing regression across the board.
And the thing is tell me there's no talent on that defensive line. I mean, a first-round pick in Darius Robinson, who's way underperforming. You haven't coached him up. You got Calais Campbell playing still at an incredibly high level. Look at him, what he did yesterday. And, you know, you got Dalvin Tomlinson. You know, you got the talent. And then the offensive line, we already know they're good. Because under Clayton Adams, they were really good. You know, so, I mean, it's not for lack of talent, put it that way. But I don't know how the players, you know, if they look at what the plan was from Monti and from Gannon, and look at how they're coached week after week with no adjustments, and that how many of the assistant coaches lack the gravitas that you would expect from NFL coaches because they just haven't coached in the NFL long enough. And some of their players have been in the NFL longer than they have. I mean, that's a scenario that if it's a preponderance in the coaching staff is a problem, and it has been. That's why, in my opinion, this is irreparable. This is a formula that is, you know, is a failure because it's so ill-conceived. And especially when you consider who you're coaching against in the division. How it's just like such an unfair. Look at what Robert Saleh's doing with, even without Fred Warner last night. They kicked ass over a really good team. I mean, a potentially explosive team. I mean, that's what coaching does. Plus, he's got Gus freaking Bradley next to him on the sidelines. There's like 50-something years of experience between the two of them. How's that going to match up with Nick Rallis in his third year? Struggling like hell to come up with a plan how to close out games. And, you know, so
Nick Rallis has been lauded for how he disguises coverages and creativity, et cetera, and really confuses the offense. Well, he isn't confusing anybody in any fourth quarter. In first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, the entire game, we watch a defense that can't tackle.
Right.
How good is your defensive coordinator when his players can't tackle?
Right. Yep.
Also, to your point, Walter, I just looked it up. Nick Rallis' first year coaching in the NFL was 2017. Gus Bradley got fired by the Jaguars in 2016. That feels like a decade ago. Gus Bradley, the Jaguars have had 7 coaches since Gus Bradley coached the Jaguars.
Yeah.
That was before Nick Rallis' first season as an NFL assistant.
Right. Yeah. So with the bye week coming up, we're going to dedicate next week's show to the 3 of our plans for who we were going to try to identify a couple of guys at each, you know, at general manager, at head coach, at OC, at DC, and special teams coordinator. And quarterback. we want to try to. All three of us are going to come up with a plan. I know Kyle. I've read part of Kyle's, and it's really, he's got it all mapped out. And I know Sam's will be amazing. So we're going to dedicate the show, the bye week to that. But let's finish out today. And this is the thing, is that, with an inexperienced coaching staff like this, and let's go down the list of Patriots. I mean, Monti Ossenfort had a front row seat to watching the greatest football domination in the history of the NFL. And I'll read the thing, and Sam will tell you whether Monti checks off the box. Okay? Patriots' tenets for success. 1, no days off.
Well, let's start with preseason, huh? Let's start with training camp, huh?
I mean, Gannon's called 2 out of 3 days of mandatory mini camps off. 2, use preseason games to build chemistry and to get players in football shape to start the season.
Nope.
3, build the roster from the inside out.
Well, if that's what he's trying to do, he hasn't done a very good job, has he?
And it speaks to your original, take about the Cardinals lines. 4, hire a mix of veteran coaches and young coaches to grow.
Arrogantly, nope.
5, don't let other teams boast your best coaches by giving them promotions. You got to give them promotions and attractive raises, like offensive line coach, legendary Dante Scarnecchia.
Well, Clayton Adams is a perfect example of no tenant for success understood by Monti there.
Right. And sometimes you have to have the prescience to know this guy's really good, and teams are going to come call. So you got to get ahead of stuff like that. Like the Patriots always did with Dante. They knew someone would poach him to try to be an OC for a play caller. Like Adams is with Schottenheimer. And by the way, they put up 44 on the Commanders yesterday, and wait till we see them on Monday Night Football. That's going to be a disparity, I think, to behold. Then when the veteran players are on the verge of decline, trade them or let them go. And I would also say, don't sign them to double-figure free agent, unless they're Calais Campbell. Well, then he's not even getting a second year. But
it's more so it's better to trade somebody 1 year early than 1 year late. Was kind of the Patriot way.
True.
And that brings up, let's say they lose after the bye. Let's say they lose to the Cowboys. Let's say they lose the following game to, I think, the Niners.
Yeah.
Are they going to? Is that the time to trade Budda Baker?
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Next week, we're gonna have a serious discussion of who the Cardinals should consider trading at the deadline. And Kyler Murray, I think, is on that list. I think they're dangling Kyler out there, to tell you the truth. I think they wanted everyone to know Kyler's moving around in practice pretty well, and they've already declared him as the starter for next Monday night. So he's healthy. We know he's healthy enough to do that. So if you want to come calling about Kyler Murray and you're a desperate team like the Raiders are right now and some others, and you need immediate help at quarterback, maybe you want to give us a call. But maybe it's not that, and they're all in earnest about still trying to, win with Kyler. Just the same, I'd apply this too to players you inherit on a roster that you don't think quite fit your plans, But
well, they're also in the advantageous position of the trade deadline is the 4th, and their last game before the deadline is the 3rd. So they really don't play again. They've got a couple weeks, and these are the guys you have if you want to trade. I don't know. Let's say a Dalvin Tomlinson. Everyone's available. They're not playing another game. Everyone's as healthy as they're going to be. They've put on tape what their value is.
Right. I'll just quickly finish the others. Creative defensive game plans that aggressively confuse and pressure the opposing quarterbacks. No, they make every opposing quarterback look so dang good because he can throw to so many open receivers every game into the Cardinals' soft shell. 8, exploit teams on offense by attacking the middle of the field with tight end, slot receivers, running backs, often in 3 waves. Tight end option 1, slot receiver option 2, running back option 3. With Kyler Murray, we never have a slot receiver. He's never fed one, and he won't because he's timid about throwing over the middle. With Jacoby, it's a brand new ball game because he can do that. But no, they don't do that. They haven't, and they have the potential now. They could with Jacoby, but they're going back to Kyler. So 8 is no. 9, have the QB use and manipulate the pocket to create clear passing lanes to step up into and climb the pocket when the edge is closed. With Jacoby, they have a semblance of that. With Kyler, they do not. 10, employ an aggressive running game using running backs by committee in order to keep them fresh and strong. Well, they're doing that now out of necessity. But in the past, they were, running James Conner into the ground pretty much. So it was anti-patriot to do it that way. Although we get it because Conner was just such a bell cow. So I don't think you can check off any of those boxes. And it just mystifies me that Monti, having seen how this works, just wasn't paying attention or doesn't think, he needs to follow a model like this. But it's mystifying. So let's finish out with the game grades. They're interesting. I want to give players some props here. The PFF grades came out last night, right after the game. I just happened to go on to check those PFF grades that I did in that tweet. And suddenly it's saying 7 games and, I go to the game grades and they're there. And it was the one game. I think they do one game in a time slot right on task. And this was the one. Maybe they're Packer fans or something. It's so interesting on offense. We already mentioned this. Jacoby had the highest grade. And then you had Trey second. And then you had Mike Williams third. Zay Jones third. And Mike Williams fourth. And then Paris Johnson fifth. I mean, I've never seen that as game grades for the Cardinals under Kyler. I've never seen that. And under Petzing. Yeah, look at that. When have we ever seen that?
Yeah, top 5. Jacoby, 81.5. Trey, 76.3. Zay Jones, 74.6. M. Willie, 68.5. And then Paris Johnson Jr., 64.4.
That's good production there, and I'm really proud of that. Let's click on. I in the comment section I put. Yeah, here we go. Read the bottom 5.
All right, bottom 5. We have Froholt at 52.0, DeGuerra at 51.5, Elijah Higgins at 48.8, Will Hernandez 47.9, Kelvin Beachum 40.4. And then you noted Jonah Williams 62.2 was his PFF grade, which didn't quite clock the bottom 5 on offense.
No. And people are saying how terrible Jonah Williams is. Let's put Micah Parsons on every right tackle in the NFL. I'm not making excuses, but Micah Parsons is a mismatch for virtually every right tackle, not named, Lane Johnson. So, but what you have to do, and this is the thing about Petzing that drives me nuts.
Here it comes.
Yeah. I mean, he lets one defensive player up front ruin games for you without an appropriate counter. How about, in Seattle when we play Leonard Williams. He doesn't do shit to key on him. And he lets Leonard Williams dictate the tempo of the whole game. He let Micah Parsons dictate the tempo of that whole game, second half last night. And he put Michael Carter chipping on him finally a few times, and it worked. But here's the thing. When the game mattered most, right? The thing I tweeted out first last night after the game was I thought the biggest mistake that Gannon made was on the 14-yard pass from Brissett to Michael Carter down to the 26-yard line with, like 40 seconds left, 45 seconds left. They could have had 45 seconds left. Instead, they didn't call the timeout. And they had two of them then.
Yeah, that was.
And not only that, so that in the timeout, you can make sure, Mike, come over here. You're going to double team, Parsons. Except, so they don't even call the timeout, and then they snap a play, and they don't have any help on Parsons, and he sacks you, and now you're like for a 9-yard loss. Game over practically. He wrecked the game right there. But it came off of a stupid decision not to stop that clock. And here again, Gannon doesn't believe in momentum. At that moment, the Cardinals had momentum to go down and score and win this game. They would have had 1st and 10 on the 26 with one timeout left and 45 seconds left on the clock. Instead, it was down to 23 after the play, and you call your timeout then, and now you're 2nd and 19 back on the 35-yard line. Huge difference. That ruined the game. I mean, and it ruined the momentum. It just swung it so back in the Packers' favor. So let's see the defensive grades.
We've got them right.
I think Jalen Thompson balled. The safeties were really good last night. JT and Buddha played their best games of the season.
All right. Cardinals top 5 defensive PFF grades. Jalen Thompson, 81.3. Akeem Davis-Gaither, 77.5. Calais Campbell, 75.0. Buddha comes in at 73.5. And PJ Mustapher at 70.9. Those were the top 5.
Right.
And then bottom 5, Dalvin Tomlinson, 49.9. Dante Stills, 45.9. Wilson comes in at 45.8. The Rabbit comes in at 45.8. And Will Johnson at 38.7.
Wow. Really surprising how poorly Tomlinson is playing. He had very little penetration. Right. Yesterday, he had 1 tackle. Meanwhile, Calais is double teamed, and we're not getting anything out of the rest of them.
Right.
Birch didn't have a good game.
Stills gets the penalty, and he deserved it.
Yes.
And he comes back like, "Oh, I don't deserve that." Bullshit, dude. It was totally unnecessary. Totally.
Yeah.
Why don't you get to him in real time and sack him for once, instead of pulling shenanigans like that? Will Johnson, all those penalties. How well is he being coached? And by the way, he's just kind of a weird cat, isn't he? He kind of sulks around the field, and it's just weird. I can't get a vibe off him. I mean, and repeated penalties, hands to the face. Here's what I believe that is. I think he knows in press coverage, if he can't get a good, bump on a receiver, he's going to be toast. Because he couldn't cover well in man at Michigan. And, and I think he's got a little bit of the Pat P in him of like, if the only way can get this done in from the slot or playing a guy is kind of, if I get a bump that gets him off the route of me immediately and I can trail him effectively enough. But I don't know what's going on with him. Here's the thing too, is he's a great zone corner, but he limits you in man. And so here's the other thing. Where in the world is Elijah Jones? Who, by the way, I mean, I watched every snap this kid took at Boston College. And I watched every one of his snaps in the preseason. He was the best man cover corner in the preseason. And he even had the grades to show for it. And in these late game soft zones, they don't even put him in there. It makes no sense to me. I mean, I will go on. I will tell you this right now. In terms of man coverage, he's as good a man coverage corner as they have on the entire team. He is. And he's better than Will Johnson in man-to-man. Now, Will Johnson is really good in zone. So, I'm really good. But that's why. And so is Denzel Burke. But you put these guys in man coverage, they had struggled with it in college, and it's going to take a while to get him, NFL confident. So it's disappointing. I mean, in a game of that magnitude that that Will Johnson, who, by the way, came into the game with the highest coverage grade in the NFL. But that's not going to be the case now, obviously. And, up to now, I think they've been using him well. I think with him, you have him, play cushion on the top of every route. He's really good at that. And then you can give him angles to the ball. He's really good at that. So you feed into his strengths. But I think bump and run, I think if he feels like he's missing, he's going to try to, go for the face and, out of desperation, because I think he knows he's going to be left in the dust because it's not his game to play bump and run like that. Not in the NFL. Anyway. So what else do we see there on the defensive grades? Disappointing up front, like we've been talking about. Tomlinson, Stills, Darius Robinson was in position to make a sack yesterday and unfortunately wasn't able to. I think he's playing a little more aggressively. Maybe he'll have a breakout game coming up, but it's been really a tough row for him. Tough group of games he has not played well in. And Calais is the only one. On the edges, we're not getting home. Sweat, unfortunately, was injured. He was ineffective. Zaven Collins had the only sack of the game. He played well. And, it was on a tech stunt. Tackle and exchange, which was a good call. And then on the good side, look at Akeem Davis Gaither. They've made a good signing there, I think. He's been solid. Mac Wilson, I predicted from my very first Red Rain blog was Mac Wilson, senior, not suited to play Mike. And I still believe that, although he's exceeded my expectations in certain ways, particularly in pass coverage. I didn't think he could hold up. He's actually done pretty decently there. But if you saw the runs last 2 weeks up the middle, he's not there. You need a Mike to sniff that out, like a Fred Warner type, to sniff those plays out and not make them go into 9-yard carries. I mean, Jonathan Taylor was dragging guys 4 yards every time he touched the ball. And yesterday, Jacobs was, getting through there and dragging guys with him as well. You need a slobber knocker at Mike who can step up and take the romance out of the b-hole. I love Mac Wilson's persona and his, and his passion. And I think he's great there. But I think the strength of his game is not in the middle; it's on the edge or blitzing from the middle. I mean, he's a really good pass rusher, and I think that's where the Patriots used him in that niche, and I think where the Cardinals could use him in that niche, and maximize, his talents that way. But in the meantime, I mean, we're grooming Cody Simon, and hopefully he's going to step into that role and be really good for us. And I think he is a Mike. The way he played as MVP of the national championship and MVP of the Rose Bowl, he played fantastic down the stretch, and he can get side to side with the best of them, as he did with those Notre Dame running backs, which I thought was so awesome because those kids can scoop. I mean, those guys are fast. And if you can range with those guys, you can range with anybody. So, final thoughts, Sam.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this team competes after a bye week. Kyler is undefeated in Texas Stadium.
Right.
And given everything we've talked about, looking at these PFF grades just on defense, how in the world is this defense going to stop CeeDee Lamb, who will be back?
Yep.
And George Pickens.
Right.
I mean, Green Bay has a nice array of wide receiver talent, but we're going to see a really good set of receivers after the bye. And then after that bye, depending on what we see, and I hope this team comes out and shows some fight and shows some competitiveness despite the losses.
Yep.
We're going to watch a Clayton Adams offense,
yep,
and the Drew Petzing offense. It'll be interesting to see our thoughts after the game.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So
what might have been, huh?
Yeah. But then again, I mean, if they can bring Clayton back as head coach, I've been watching his interviews and stuff. This guy has the gravitas.
Oh yeah, he's polished.
He is polished, and like I said, you want someone who brings something special. BA brought something special. The no risk it, no biscuit would surprise you on play calls, get after you, vertical passing lane, come after you at the end of games. He didn't sit around in a shell. He even sent the house against Aaron Rodgers and gave up a Hail Mary in the playoff game because he'd rather, do that than just, play things soft. And it turned out fine because of the Hail Larry in overtime. So, or was it right before the end of the half? I think it was maybe overtime. But anyway, Hail Larry saved the day. And, and then Steve Wilks, I think we didn't see enough of Steve Wilks to know, but I liked his 4-3 defense. I still do. And I thought for a defense that was on the field the whole game, I mean, if you look at the rankings, what he did with that defense, it actually was pretty amazing how much he got out of that defense. And Pat P had his best year. And he got a lot out of Pat P, so I kind of, and Wilks helped the Niners get to a Super Bowl and had checked Mahomes like nobody had up until that point. And that game was forced into overtime. The defense played really well. And he gets canned, and I thought was, it's just the poor guy is kind of, I don't know, in the path of the tornado at times, and then has gotten some raw deals, in my opinion.
So he was fired after a 3-13 record.
Yeah.
So what if Gannon finishes with 3 wins?
Right. And, the thing about Wilks was being saddled with Mike McCoy, who ironically is the interim head coach.
Couldn't believe it. How did he find his way back?
Made his way back from the San Diego beach where the Cardinals exiled him to after like 7 games.
No, it was worse than that. It was worse than that. It was a
as
Jacksonville beach.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. So, what goes around comes around, huh? So anyway, I think Wilkes brings some he's a dang good football coach. And I think he would have been a hell of a head coach, given time, but we'll never know that, obviously. And I think he stood up to Bidwell and Keim, which I give him a lot of credit for, and was made the scapegoat by them, which I thought was despicable. And then Cliff, we all know what Cliff brings special to the table. Is Cliff perfect? No offense coordinator is. This guy coaches quarterbacks as well as pretty much anyone on the planet. So that's to begin with, and his schemes are pretty elaborate and creative. So, but with Jonathan Gannon, he's a high energy guy, so he brings that to the building and he brings enthusiasm. Love that about him. He's made to order for the NFL criteria for head coaches grades. The players love him for maximizing their time because he gives them days off. It's like loving a teacher for calling off homework. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's part of it. I mean, I don't think he runs kind of soft training camps. And I think that they go spirited and, pretty well during the week, but it's it's not overbearing on the players at all. So I think they're going to grade that an A. And the other one is, do you have an open door? And that's Gannon's thing. Gannon is great at that. In fact, that's what he wanted to be free for, so he can go around and coach up guys. So, I mean, he deserves the A's for that. But if you don't have something special during a game to stop these fourth quarter swoons, and you vowed to do it after you were 2-0, and we haven't seen any difference since, and it's happening every week, and you're getting, beat in the fourth quarters that way. And put it this way, the Cardinals lost by 4-3 the last 2 weeks and got outscored 28-6 in the fourth quarters. I mean, how close is that? But if you can't finish, if you can't put a stop on that, it's going to continue to happen. That's why I don't have confidence. I mean, if we haven't seen an answer to it by now, how are we going to see an answer to it? And there are no senior advisors to turn to. And that's just unthinkable to me. Because that's why you hire senior advisors. It's like, hey, buddy, come here. What do we do? I'm got a suggestion? Yeah, well, when I was with Atlanta, here's what we did to stop a run like this. Oh, good idea. So, I mean, not having anyone to turn to in these tough times also makes this an untenable situation, and one that's I don't think there's a chance they can correct it. Kyle, what do you think? Last parting shot.
All right, so 3 parts, just because you mentioned one thing there. One with the coaches who don't have experience. I've always said, like, Marvin Lewis is just hanging out 10 minutes away at his house in retirement. Just offer him a key card. Like, he doesn't even, like, you just want to come in sometimes. Like, you don't even, we'll throw you a few bucks here. Just give him a key card. If he wants to come in, he wants to come in. He's just enjoying retirement, literally down the street from the facility. Just ask him if he wants to just come in for a day. And just give him a key card, whatever he wants. It's fine. That one I've always thought is so strange. He was with the Raiders briefly last year, but after Antonio Pierce got fired, they didn't bring him back. But he's literally 10 minutes drive from the facility, just hanging out if you want to have him come in and give you some advice.
Good point.
So anyways, that one I've always thought is funny. Second thing, not Cardinals related. Shout out to the people who are listening to the show. last week between YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcast, we did over 350 viewers, which is our highest game post-game show of the season. So highest post-game show, if I go back, I think we've probably done since the 2024 season, early 2024, before things kind of fell apart after the bye week. So thank you everybody who's come back in droves and is listening to the show. We super, super appreciate that. I know Walter's always trying to come up with new creative content, so it's fun. Even after the Colts loss, it was fun that so many people jumped in and wanted to listen to what we had to say. The last point, I'm trying to remember what the last point I had was. Oh yeah, coming off of the bye week, I will bring up an example from last year of the New Orleans Saints that the Cardinals should pay attention to, which was the Saints in Dennis Allen's third season did not have a playoff appearance yet. They started the season 2-0. They proceeded to lose 5 games in a row, went into a bye week, came back, lost 2 more games to fall to 2-7, and they fired Dennis Allen and fired the coaching staff. I will point that out to say the Cardinals are on the Saints trajectory right now with a 2-0 start, a 5-game losing streak, a bye, and then 2 more games where I'm guessing they will probably be underdogs against the Dallas Cowboys and then on the road against the Seahawks. So if we're following the Dennis Allen pipeline here for Jonathan Gannon, they're going to need a win over the next 2 weeks, because a 7-game losing streak, it's going to be hard to justify keeping a job after a season that had basically playoff expectations going down the tank so fast. It's going to be tough to justify that one. So anyways, I thought that was funny. I was looking that up yesterday.
Good call.
I remember Dennis Allen had a long losing streak also and got fired.
Yeah.
So that is, oh, by the way, also his starting quarterback got hurt in the middle of said losing streak. I forgot about that too. Derek Carr went out in the middle of that as well. So put it all together, they're on the 2024 Saints trajectory, a truly awful path to be on, but it is the path that the Cardinals might be on. So gotta watch out and see, because 6 or 7 game losing streak, and it's probably not going to last much longer.
Right. So next week we're going to have the bye week special. We're going to have lists of players we think, discussion of players we think that the Cardinals should trade or accommodate trades for, like Calais. If he wants to go to a competitor, they owe it to him, I believe. And that's be up for discussion with the panel next week. We'll also have our own list of wannabes for a new regime across the board, from GM to head coach to OC to DC to quarterback. All 3 of us. So there'll be a great discussion there about that. And then looking ahead to the Cardinals schedule and what they're going to do. And then we haven't, amazingly, in this whole podcast today, we haven't even talked about the Kyler Murray situation, which is fascinating in the sense that how the Cardinals have handled this. It was bizarre. If the injury was as reported by, Adam Schefter as a Liz Frank, what in the world are they doing having Kyler out throwing around the football field, putting weight on it? It makes no sense. So that said to me, the severity of this, they want people to know, is not that bad. Somehow, some way. I mean, they just had him thrown off to the side anyway. Maybe for fear of maybe someone would step on the foot. And maybe that's how he injured it to begin with. I don't know. But then you have this, before the game yesterday, announcement from Schefter that the Cardinals have already named Kyler the starting quarterback on Monday Night Football. Which, as I said, to my good pal Trish, I was like, so you're telling Jacoby Brissett, no matter what you do in this game, even if you win it, and he damn near did, you're going back to the bench, and you got to understand your role here. When the guy's playing his heart out, and he's showing what the offense can look like, the passing game could have been looking like all along. So much better than night and day difference. So, but so next week, stay tuned. As Kyle said, thanks to all of you for your support. We'll continue to try to bring you some interesting perspectives and about the Cardinals and what we can look for. I think we all want to win, and in our own ways are going about finding that puzzle piece of how they're going to do it. And right now those pieces don't connect, but we got to stay. I know everyone's discouraged, thinking like, well, it's not going to happen at any time. We have found success in the past, willy or by nilly, and it's possible we could find it again. I think the more and more that Michael Bidwell's willing to delegate control to a new GM, for example, and just sort of stay out of the process, would be key to that. So, but in the interim, thank you for your support. May the red rain shower down on you into the Red Sea at Casa Rosa. Red rain.